I started my 10 minutes. All right, our chapter this time, if I can ever get it over where we can see it, is about trying to deal with rate of change. We're going to deal with the slopes of lines, drawing lines, writing the equations of a line. Those are some of the things that we're going to be doing. The first thing we will define is the rate of change. And if you notice my trusty box here, the rate of change, and we're not having any luck, guys. The rate of change will be defined as a change in the dependent divided by change in the independent variable. Now, the next thing we'll deal with will be slope. Slope of a line just tells how it goes up and down. Now, since I cannot do this at the board, I'll do it from back here. And what we're going to look at is a program called Desmos. Desmos lets us graph lines. And if you look over here to the side, here on the left side right here, it shows that the slope of our line is 1, and this is basically called the identity curve. If I move the M, notice what happens to the steepness of my line. Do you agree that's real steep? And then if I go down like this, oops, what happened there? Can you see that that's a negative slope? Anything going downhill is said to be a negative slope. If it's going uphill, it's said to be a positive slope. So therefore, when we look at our rate of change, we'll use this when we have tables. It's the change in the dependent values divided by the change of the independent values. Then we'll have a working definition for slope. Slope, and we use M for the variable, is going to be equal to rise over run. Or it's equal to this symbol, and it's the Greek letter delta, which stands for the change in y over the change in x. And this guy right here is the working definition. Now, all of this still goes back to our rate of change here, because which variable is dependent, x or y? Y. So if you look what we have right here, we have the change in y's over the change of x. Then the last thing we want to talk about on this page is that if you have a slope, and it is a positive slope, it looks like it's going uphill, just like this one right here. Then if it's going downhill, we think of that as a negative slope. If we have a zero slope, it's a horizontal line, it's 0. But this guy is going to cause us some problems because it's undefined. Now, since the board and I are not working together, Leslie, can you go to the board? No, can you show it up here to the front? So just spin it around, slide over.
Wait, which one?
I'll go right here.
Okay.
All right, so let's take a point. Oh, Garrett, give me an ordered pair.
-2, +1.
All right. Irving, give me a point.
6 and -31.
So if I want you to find the slope, I will expect you to write down M equals the working definition, this guy right here. You need to write this down every time. Now, did you hear me, guys? How many times do you have to write this down on your paper?
Every.
Every time they ask you to find the slope, I expect to see this equation. Why is that? Why do I ask you to write it down every time? No, not in the process. This is so you have it memorized. You have to memorize this formula. It is one that you have to know. Now, here's our formula. I'm going to let this one be x1, y1, x2, y2. And then if I substitute in, I'll put the y2, that one goes first, minus my y1, then my x2 minus my x1. And I should see this on your paper. Well, what's the numerator going to reduce to? And what will we have in our denominator?
8.
8. And if you were told to reduce that, be a minus 4. So you will do this process, and this is the slope of the line. All right. Can they still see down here? So if I gave you 5, negative 8, and 5, 3, and ask you to find the slope, you start with y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Again, you write that down each time. x1, y1. I can make this x1, y1 and this x2, y2 either way, and it will still work. You just have to be consistent that the 2's and the 1's are in the same ordered pair. So, in the numerator, I'm going to have 3 minus a negative 8. In the denominator, I'm going to have 5 minus 5. So what will I get? Mateo, what do I get in the numerator?
You would have 0.
Just give me the number.
0.
In the numerator. You have to know the difference between numerator and denominator.
Okay, that would be a negative 10. No, 11.
This is not supposed to be a tough question. 3 plus 8.
Yeah, negative 11.
The double negatives make it positive. That's why I wrote it down here so you would see it.
I'm going to assume it's a positive 11 now because of my stupidity in the last 5 guesses.
Irving, what's in the denominator?
0.
What does this simplify down to?
0.
Pardon?
11. Undefined.
It's undefined. You cannot divide by 0. So you will use undefined. If I would graph these 2 points, I'd have 5, negative 8, and 5, 3, and they would be a vertical line. And if I have a vertical line, the slope is always going to be undefined. All right. In today's lesson, you had, you've got 2 minutes. You are going to be asked to find the rate of change. You find the rate of change by taking the change of the dependent over the change of the independent. So, if I gave you a table, Leslie, can you slide over here?
Yeah.
Let me give you a quick table. And then you have to, I'll show you how it works. Can't find one right off the top. Somewhere I lost signs that I'm not supposed to have. There we go. So what you're going to do is this is your y, this is your dependent. You're going to look at what this difference is. Then this is your x and this is your independent. And you're going to look at what this difference is. Now I chose poorly because the difference here is 1, isn't it? So if the difference here was 5, the difference here was 2, you'd have your rate of change as 5 over 2. So basically when you do it as a table, you need to look what's the change as we go down the line. Same thing on the other side. You take this difference divided by this difference. Okay? So that's the first thing when they ask you find the rate of change. Then when they talk about the slope of the line, we're dealing with steepness. And I can tell you right now, on the first quiz, I'm gonna ask you to define slope, and you'll be using those three, okay? And then you'll be after, recognize, I'm done.
Oh, do you want me to stop this?
Stop.